Hey everyone, it's Nico from Documenting Simple Living. Today I'm going to show you how we make elderberry syrup gummies from elderberry syrup. The reason that I make elderberry syrup gummies is that for our family it makes elderberry syrup more easily able to be eaten by younger kids. This is just our experience and how I make the gummies. If you're thinking about making these for your own children or your own family, make sure to do your own research, speak to your doctor, paediatrician. And one other thing I want to say is that most elderberry syrup recipes call for honey, and it's not recommended that you give very young children honey. All of this to say that it's important to do your own research. Please don't think I'm offering medical advice. I'm certainly not a doctor. What I'm sharing here is just our way of doing it. What you will need is elderberries, so I like to use dried organic elderberries, cloves, 1 to 2 cinnamon sticks. I actually don't have cinnamon sticks, so today I'm just using dried cinnamon that's ground. And you'll need ginger as well as lemon. So the first step to making elderberry gummies is to make elderberry syrup. So the first thing that I'm going to do to make elderberry syrup today is to chop up my ginger into small cubes. Then I'm going to put all the ingredients into a pot and cover everything with about 4 cups of water that will go on the stove and simmer away for about 45 minutes. Now, if you want the exact measurements for this recipe, that is on documentingsimpleliving.com, but don't worry too much about the exact measurements. You need about a cup of dried elderberries, a few cinnamon sticks, a few inches of ginger, the juice of a lemon, and a few cloves. Then simply strain it off and really make sure to mash down those elderberries to squeeze out all of the juice. And if you are adding honey to your elderberry syrup, then I usually use about a 1/3, 1/4 cup, but I would recommend that you use it to taste. So if you want it a bit sweeter, add more, less sweet, take it away. Or if you don't want to include it at all, that's totally fine. I like to store my elderberry syrup in a glass bottle that's sealable and just pop it into the fridge. Now to make the gummies, what you will need is gelatin or arrowroot or another sort of substitute for gelatin. I like to find, pasture-raised beef gelatin. Sometimes you just can't find that, and so you could look for a substitute like arrowroot powder. And then you'll need hot water. Measure out about a 1/3 or a 1/4 cup of cooled elderberry syrup and put it into a separate bowl and add the gelatin to that syrup and mix it up with a fork. And then to that mixture, add 2/3 or 3/4 cup of hot water. Now again, don't think too much about the measurements. The goal is to divide 1 cup of cooled elderberry syrup so you can mix in the gelatin and the hot water to a smaller portion and then slowly add in the rest of that cup of syrup. So once your syrup and gelatin and hot water are all combined, take your silicone gummy molds and put them on a baking sheet. This will just help prevent the liquid from spilling over when you move them to the fridge. And pour in that gelatin, hot water, elderberry syrup mixture into each gummy mold. Then what you want to do is move everything into the fridge for about 2 to 3 hours. Now I had read online to leave it for about an hour, and so that's what I did originally. But when I tried to pull the gummies out of the mold, they sort of broke apart, and so I just put it back in the fridge for another hour or so. So I'd recommend leaving them alone in the fridge for about 2 to 3 hours. Now you can store these gummies in a freezer-safe container in the freezer, which is what I tend to do because I only really pull these out when I know that people are getting sick. Or you can also store them in the fridge in a glass airtight container as well, and they should last for a few months. I have to be honest and say that this is the second time I tried to make these gummies. When I made them the first time, I think I somehow messed up the gelatin to syrup ratio and they didn't set. It's just part of the journey of learning to make things from scratch and at home instead of buying them from the store. I've just come to accept that when I try to make things like this for the first time, it'll hardly ever be perfect. So if you're on a similar journey where you're trying to swap out some of your reliance on store-bought to more homemade, I would encourage you to sign up for the Documenting Simple Living newsletter. I use the word newsletter loosely because it's more of a community of people who are all on the same journey of learning to live a bit more simply in the modern world and sharing what works, what doesn't work, to help each other avoid similar stumbling blocks and just send each other encouragement on their journey. So if you want to subscribe to that, the link is in the description below. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I will speak to you in the next Documenting Simple Living video.